Oh, would you look at this?
What's up, guys?
Why am I so happy?
Well, because we just hit 1,000,000 views last night. That's right, 1,000,000 views. I know for some people that's like nothing, but for me this is huge. I mean, I can't believe 1,000,000 views. That's crazy, man. It's just hard to think. Some videos get 1,000,000 views in like the first 5 minutes. Like you look at music videos and stuff, and they have like 100,000,000 views. It's unbelievable just for one video, and it's taken me this much time to get to 1,000,000 views. But for me, that's just awesome. So I want to thank all you guys for watching my videos. Even if you only ever watch one video, if this is the only video you ever watch, I don't care. I appreciate that. All you guys that are hitting that thumbs up button, leaving comments below, really helps push me through this and make me want to go more videos for you guys and better content and stuff like that. So thanks again, really appreciate it. So I guess we'll celebrate it by tearing this Raptor motor apart. And that 1,000,000 views is really a large portion of that is because of my two-stroke Corvette video. If you guys haven't watched it, I'll post a link right here. That's kind of funny. That's my most hated video, but it has the most views. It has like 250,000 views right now. And by far the most hated video. Come on, guys. It's obviously a Banshee soundtrack. But anyways, what we're going to be doing today is taking the top end off of this Raptor 700. I want to get it done before the weekend. Today's Friday, July 6th. I'll probably get this up maybe Monday, maybe today. I'm not really sure. I'm going to try to get it up today. That'd be awesome. I don't know if it's going to render in time. But I want to get this piston ordered so that I can get it next week. I want to get this engine back together, back in the frame. I don't want to take the Raptor riding soon. So let's get to tearing this motor down. All right, so here it is. I got it sitting on this stand here. Really nice. Got my oil can down here, or pan rather, just because it's dripping some oil from the oil returns. But what we're going to do today is just take the head off. I want to take the head and the cylinder off. And I want to see what's going on inside there. I don't even really need to take the cylinder off today, but I'm going to anyway to check the rod and everything. I'm really curious what's going on with that. But really what I want to do is measure this cylinder and just make sure that it's a stock piston. And that way I'll order the right parts. And then like I said, I'm most likely going to be ordering a CP piston for this thing. So this motor should break down pretty easy like any other four-stroke motor I've done before. I'm not going to be following the manual. Like I said in my last video, I'm just going to kind of do this at my own pace, my own way. And if I get stuck, then I'll refer to the manual. Keep in mind, guys, I'm not a professional mechanic. Kind of, do-it-yourselfer, chop shop, backyard mechanic. But seriously, guys, remember, this is an entertainment channel. A lot of this stuff is to help you guys out because, I want to do this stuff right, but I'm going to learn at the same time that you guys are learning. This is the first Raptor 700 I've ever done work on.
I'm a chop shop guy.
I have no idea what I'm talking about.
I'm like the Street Fighter of mechanics. Take it for what it is, man. But I do want you to learn something.
No, but seriously, guys, remember, this is an entertainment channel. I am very mechanically inclined, but all of the stuff that I've learned is just from years and years of osmosis through my father, working on other quads, and just learning the trade as I do it. So I don't have any kind of like formal training or anything like that. Just keep that in mind. So some of the stuff and tactics that I use, I can get the job done right, don't worry. And if I do something wrong, I always make it right in the end. But this is my own way. I'm not following the service manual, so just keep in mind. Sometimes I get torn up in the comments and stuff. It's an entertainment channel. Relax. Oh, and hey guys, before I start tearing this motor down, don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you enjoy this video and you enjoy this content, you want to see more of it. And also check out my Instagram and Facebook page if you want to be up to date and see what's going on. In between videos, sometimes it takes a little bit, but that way you'll know what's going on. ATV Crazy 91. That's my Instagram. That's my Facebook. Check it out. Like and subscribe. Alright, let's get to it. First thing we're going to do is take the spark plug out. Then we'll get rid of this oil line because we're not going to be able to lift the cylinder off with that thing on there. Then I'm going to come over here, take this cam inspection cover off, take our chain tensioner off, timing chain tensioner, so that we can get our, I think the cam gear actually comes off, and then that way the chain will fall in. I can pull the head off after I pull all the these studs out, or not the studs, but the bolts. shouldn't be too bad. And then we'll be able to look at the piston, measure the cylinder, take the cylinder off, and see if the crank's any good. We'll wiggle it, see if that's what's stuck. It's getting replaced either way. Let's get to it. Before I move on here, guys, I just wanted to point something out. This oil line here that I just pulled off, you want to make sure you don't lose these little copper washers. You can see them. There's one on the bottom, and there's one on the top of these bolts. You want to make sure you don't lose them. There should be one on the top and the bottom of both. I noticed this one only had one on the top, so I wasn't really sure. You know, sometimes the way things are built is weird. There might not be, maybe there wasn't supposed to be one, but down here. So being the Street Fighter of mechanics, I have my trusty motorsport schematic. And you can see the oil line right here. And there's a washer on the top and bottom of both. So that is in fact missing. So I will either order up one or see if I have one here at the house. But we'll definitely be throwing one of these copper washers on the bottom oil line. So that means this was taken off. Somebody's probably been in this motor before. And the other thing I wanted to mention is it's good to throw stuff in plastic bags just to keep it together. So I'm going to take this oil line and throw that in there with the bolts and the washers, so when I'm putting things back together, I know what goes with what goes where, and it's just a good way to keep things organized and clean. Okay, so there's our cam gear, and here's our decompression lever. It's an automatic decompression lever. Basically how that works, at lower RPMs, this stays in, and then the more centrifugal force that you get from RPMs, this opens up, and when it's like that, the valve, it's actually closed. So at very, very low RPMs, like when you're kicking it, if it was a kickstart, or when the engine's chugging, this is closed. So it's got an automatic decompression. Makes it a little easier for the engine to chug over. So it looks like I'll be able to just take these two 10mm bolts out, and this gear comes off. And judging by the way it looks, you can see it's different on this side of the gear over here. And there's our cam mark for lining up the timing. That lines up here. But anyways, it doesn't look like you can put this gear on incorrectly. It can only go on one way. So I'm going to go ahead. First I'll take off our timing chain tensioner. So that's going to reduce the tension on this chain and give us some slack. Then I'll take the bolts out. We'll be able to, looks like that gear comes right off. And then I can let the chain go down, and then we'll get to taking off our cylinder. Or our head. Now you can see there's some slack on that chain. Give us some play to get that gear off. One thing I forgot to mention, guys, normally when you're taking this chain off, you want to line this up with top dead center. And you can see the mark at the top of this gear. top dead center would be right about there. And the only reason I didn't do that today is because on this bike, you see down here, I took this inspection window off. You can turn the crank by throwing a socket on here and turning counterclockwise. And that's how we would get this lined up to be a top dead center. But this crank is locked up. I even tried shocking it with the impact gun just to see if I could get it moving again, but it's completely locked up. So I had to kind of pry it very gently with a screwdriver, and it popped off and freed up. But typically that's not really the way you want to do it. And I'm going to be putting a new cam chain on here anyway, so I wasn't too concerned if I stretched the chain or anything like that. And also, if you are taking your cam gear off and you're not taking your head off or your cylinder, usually you tie your cam chain to something. I just have it hanging on a bolt right now, but you use a zip tie or something. Like if it's in the frame, throw a zip tie through there and wrap it around an area on the frame. Because if your chain falls down into the cylinder and the bottom end, you're asking for trouble. It's going to be a nightmare getting it back out of there, and you might even have to take the motor apart to get to it. But in this case, we're taking the whole motor apart. We're going to be splitting the cases and stuff, so it doesn't matter. I'm just going to let it sink in there, and if it falls, it falls. So next we're going to take our valve inspection covers off, and then we'll start popping the bolts off so we can get our head off. So I did look in the service manual, and I actually knew that we didn't have to take these valve inspection covers off. But some quads and dirt bikes, there is a bolt down here that you have to take off to get the head off. And I've already made the mistake of not taking that out because you can't see it without those covers, or when those covers are on there. And then I'm whapping at the head and stuff, and it's not coming off, and you can't figure out why. So I'm actually going to throw those covers back on just to keep things clean in there. But I just wanted to pop those off to show you. So for this one, we have 6 bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then there's 2 bolts go in the opposite direction. You can see one right here. And then there's one right here. These are the other tough ones that a lot of people miss when you don't look in the manual. They're really easy to look past. So there's 8 bolts for this. We'll pop those things off right after I get these covers on. Not going to film that. I'm just going to throw those on, and we'll get to popping the other bolts off. What is the deal with all these super tight bolts on this quad? Now, technically, when you're taking these head bolts out, you're supposed to do them in a pattern. They usually have it kind of like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. It's usually a crisscross pattern, just so that you evenly take the pressure off of that cylinder head and you don't warp anything. Now, me personally, I do agree with that a little bit. Definitely when you're tightening down, but what I do is I take off the smaller bolts first, and like the ones down here in the front and the back, and then these ones up top I'll break loose in a crisscross pattern, and once they're all broken loose I'll just pull them out. Surprise there. All the bolts on this quad have been abnormally tight, it seems. I don't know if they're seized or if they were tightened down way too tight the last time somebody did work on this. So I ended up using the impact gun, and I tried doing, a crisscross pattern, but I ended up kind of just snapping them off. I think it'll be all right though. Let's see if we can pop this head off. Well, that came off a lot easier than I expected it to, especially with how tight some of these bolts have been on this quad. Thought we were going to have to whap that thing with a mallet or something. It doesn't look too bad in here. Seems like the cylinder's okay. This looks like the OEM piston. I have a feeling this has been replaced at one point in time. It says 1S3 on there. B. So actually, this might be an oversized piston, because I know they make these things in sizes A, B, and C, sometimes D, and they're all slightly larger than the OEM piston, and it's just to make up for wear in the cylinder. So this thing may actually be an oversized piston, so we might have to order something a little bit bigger just to compensate for that. We'll see. Once we pull it out of there, we'll get an idea, get a serial number, and see exactly what's in there. So here's our head. It really doesn't look too bad. It's just got carbon buildup on there. As far as how flush these valves are seating, I don't really know where our camshaft is because I wasn't able to get this thing to top dead center. So I think these are all good. I had great compression before I pulled everything apart, and the quad actually ran very good, except it was seizing up from the crank bearing. And I also checked our clearances and everything. Everything was kind of in spec. So I think this is all good. Just going to clean this up, and we'll be able to throw that back on after we do all the motor work. And I also noticed this hose clamp just kind of floating here. It's an extra hose clamp. It's not even supposed to be there. So obviously this thing has had work done to it before. And because the B-size piston, pretty sure this is an aftermarket piston, this thing's obviously been rebuilt at another time by someone who likes tightening down bolts way too much. Alright, let's see if we can get this cylinder off. That's really bad. These bolts should not be that tight. So here it is. It's an OEM crank. And you can see it's blued from heat. And check this out. It's not the main bearings. You can see they move, but the rod will not go back and forth. It's the rod bearing at the bottom. So I'll take this piston off. And the cylinder looks really good. You can see cross-hatching, and it's not glazed too much, it's not too shiny. I think the cylinder's just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and take this wrist pin out, and we'll see what kind of piston that is, and then we'll measure our cylinder and order a new piston. Just to give you a better look at this crank, that thing ain't moving. It's seized. Here's our piston. I'm still not sure what kind of piston this is. I'm guessing that it's OEM. Usually there's some kind of markings on the inside, like a serial number or something. I'm guessing it's OEM. The only thing that makes me think it's been replaced is this B. Maybe that means back, like the back goes towards the back portion, but the dot up here indicates where the front of the piston is supposed to go, so I'm not sure why that would be there. Usually, like I said, there's like an A size, a B size, C size, and it's just like a fraction of a millimeter larger to compensate for cylinder wear. So I see the 1S3 though, and I've seen that's on the gaskets. I saw it on the cylinder. It seems to be everywhere, so I'm thinking this is OEM. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'll measure our cylinder at the top and the bottom with this micrometer, and we'll see how big this thing is and what size piston to order. Alright, so we are at 102 millimeters, almost on the dot. This tool probably isn't the most accurate. You can see it's slightly off. It's this first line here. That's 10 centimeters and 2 little hash marks. Makes it 102 millimeters. So I measured width-wise, both ways, top and bottom. So I'm going to go ahead with a standard CP piston, 102 millimeters. So it looks like I could have ordered a stock size piston and I would have had my parts by now, but it's always good to open up a motor and see what's going on inside, especially because this wasn't my quad before. I have no idea what kind of aftermarket parts or what kind of work is done to this quad. So it's just good to, cover all the bases, especially on an expensive part like a piston that's going to cost me almost $200. So here it is, guys. CP piston for 06 to 14 Yamaha Raptor 700. CP is supposed to be top of the line. Everybody's recommending this from the forums, and I'm getting it in the comments. So I'm going to spend the money. It's 195 bucks, free shipping, but I figure it'll be worth it in the long run. So this comes with pretty much everything I need. I already got my gaskets and whatnot, and there's actually no bearing at the top of the crank rod, the needle bearing, so I don't even have to order that. So I'm going to go ahead and order that piston. Should be here next week sometime. I won't be around this weekend to film any videos. I'm actually celebrating the 4th of July late this year. But early next week, I'm going to be pulling the Banshee out and pulling the head off just to see what the heck is going on, so stay tuned for that. If you watch the routing videos, you know I just blew it up. So I'm thinking that the piston cracked, grenaded the piston, but we'll find out in that next video, so stay tuned for that. Until then, guys, enjoy your weekend. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this. Also, remember to comment below. Check out my Facebook and Instagram pages. And if I don't see you, enjoy the weekend. I'll see you in the next one.